Chris Martin suddenly proposed to Dakota Johnson. The diamond ring said it all. A night that was never meant to be ordinary. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. Just a simple dinner by the coast, the kind of night Chris Martin and Dakota Johnson always treasured. No red carpets, no photographers, no stylists rushing around. Just silence, the scent of ocean air, and the comfort of two people who had held on to each other through storms neither dared to mention publicly. Dakota had no idea her life was about to change. Earlier that day, Chris had behaved strangely. A little distracted, a little too gentle, a little too emotional. She thought he was stressed from work or maybe exhausted from rehearsals. He kept touching his pocket, checking something, and every time she asked, he'd smile like a man carrying a secret he was terrified to let out. What she didn't know was this. In his pocket was a diamond ring that was never part of any script, but would rewrite the script of their lives. The weight of years of unasked questions. Their relationship had always been delicate, beautifully unconventional. Dakota was a woman who moved like poetry, graceful yet full of mystery. Chris was a man who sang his heart freely to the world but hid his deepest fears where no song could reach. Over the years, they had learned each other's wounds. Dakota helped Chris rediscover vulnerability. Chris helped Dakota rediscover peace. But there was always an unspoken question hovering over them, a silent one that fans, friends, and even tabloids kept asking. Will Chris Martin ever propose? Dakota pretended not to hear it. She never pressured, she never hinted, but Chris had noticed, in quiet moments, how her expression sometimes tightened when she saw couples with engagement rings, or when friends got married, or when a reporter made a cruel joke about her endless girlfriend status. And despite Dakota never asking for anything, Chris knew she deserved everything. That was when the idea began growing inside him, terrifying, overwhelming, but powerful. A proposal. But not a public one. Not a rehearsed one. One from the deepest part of his soul. The dinner, simple, soft, and destined. Chris had arranged the table on a private terrace overlooking the Malibu shoreline. Soft lights, gentle candles, and a playlist of quiet Coldplay instrumentals. Nothing too dramatic, nothing too fancy. Just enough to let the moment breathe. Dakota arrived in a simple ivory silk dress. Her hair was loose, wind-kissed. She didn't look prepared for an engagement. She looked like herself, calm, real, breathtaking without even trying. Chris watched her in silence for a moment, wondering how someone could feel like both home and adventure. During dinner he barely ate. Dakota teased him. "Chris, you're staring again." "Because I still don't understand how you exist," he replied, half embarrassed, half sincere. She laughed, that soft, melodic sound that always made his chest ache in the best way. But beneath the laughter, Chris's heart was pounding. He kept checking his pocket. He kept hearing his pulse louder than the ocean. Dakota, intuitive as always, sensed something was different. "Is everything all right?" she asked gently. Chris swallowed. "If I told you the truth, no," he whispered. Dakota's eyes widened, worried, confused. Chris stood up. Her breath caught. The moment that stopped the world. Chris didn't kneel immediately. He stood there, staring at her, as if wrestling with his own trembling emotions. "Dakota," he began, voice cracking, "for years, I've been waiting for the right moment. But I realized, the right moment doesn't exist unless we decide it does." Dakota's eyes softened, confused, but moved. Chris continued. "You know me better than anyone. You know I'm not perfect. You know I overthink. You know I carry mistakes and fears like heavy stones. And still, you stayed. You stayed when I felt unworthy. You stayed when I pushed the world away." He took a shaky breath. "And I know you've been hurt. I know people have taken advantage of your kindness. I know you've walked through heartbreaks you never talk about. But Dakota, you still love with everything you have. Dakota's lips trembled as tears gathered in her eyes. Chris finally reached into his pocket, slowly, carefully, and pulled out a small velvet box. Dakota gasped. He sank to one knee. The world disappeared. Dakota Mae Johnson, Chris whispered, voice breaking, I don't want to imagine a future without you. Will you marry me? Dakota's hand flew to her mouth as tears spilled over her cheeks. She didn't answer immediately, because she couldn't. Emotion had stolen her breath. Chris, she whispered, shaking. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, he said, opening the box. Inside was a diamond ring, elegant, timeless, radiant but understated. A ring that didn't scream status, but whispered devotion. A ring that said he truly knew her. That was when she cried harder. Because this wasn't a flashy Hollywood proposal. This was love, quiet, real, vulnerable. She nodded, unable to speak. Then finally, through tears. Yes, Chris. Yes, of course yes. He slipped the ring onto her shaking hand. It fit like fate. The diamond ring that said everything. It wasn't just a ring. It was a message from Chris that he had never spoken aloud. You are my forever. The diamond wasn't enormous. It wasn't ostentatious. It was meaningful, a rare vintage cut he picked specifically because it reflected Dakota's soul, classic, warm, and quietly dazzling. When she saw it, she whispered. It's perfect. It's so, me. Chris smiled, tears in his eyes. That's why I chose it. They stood together, wrapped in each other's arms, the ring catching the candlelight like a promise shining into the future. After the proposal, the truth they finally spoke. After the tears, after the trembling breaths, after the heartbeat that shook the night, Chris held her close as they sat down, losing track of time. I was scared, Chris admitted, stroking her fingers. I thought maybe you didn't want marriage after everything you've been through. Dakota looked away, the mention of past heartbreaks always left shadows behind her eyes. I stopped believing marriage could mean safety, she murmured. But you never made me feel unsafe. Ever. Chris kissed her forehead. You gave me light when I didn't even know I was in the dark, he whispered. I want to be that for you too. Dakota leaned into him. You are, Chris. You already are. He squeezed her hand. You know this means sharing the storms too, right? Not just the quiet moments. Dakota smiled through tears. I'm not afraid of storms anymore, she whispered, because you're in them with me. The calls, joy, tears, and an unexpected silence. Later that night, they called their closest people. Chris's daughter, Apple, squealed so loudly that Dakota burst into laughter. You're officially stuck with us now, Apple joked, making Dakota tear up again. Moses, Chris's son, simply said. Dakota, you were already family. Now it's just official. Chris wiped tears quietly as he listened. But then came the call Dakota hesitated to make, the one Chris gently encouraged her to do. Her mother. Melanie Griffith answered on the first ring. When Dakota said the words, Mom, Chris proposed, there was a long pause. Then Melanie cried. Not politely. Not softly. She sobbed. My baby, I'm so happy for you, she said, voice shaking. You finally found someone who sees you. Dakota cried again, because that was the truth she had never spoken aloud. The world still didn't know, and they loved that. They didn't post anything. They didn't call the press. They didn't wear the ring in public the next day. For now, the engagement belonged to them alone, sacred, quiet, private. They curled up on the couch, Dakota's head on Chris's chest, his arm around her waist, their breaths syncing naturally like two songs blending into one. Chris whispered. I don't care about the wedding date, the ceremony, the dress. I only care about waking up every day knowing you're my wife. Dakota smiled sleepily. And you're my husband. He kissed her hair. I still can't believe you said yes. She lifted her hand, studying the ring. Chris, she murmured, I would have said yes to you even without a ring. He laughed softly, that warm, relieved laugh she loved. I know, that's why I wanted to give you one worthy of you. What the diamond ring revealed that words never could. In silence, Dakota realized something. This wasn't just a proposal. It was healing. A gentle, powerful undoing of every hurt she had carried, the doubts, the heartbreaks, the whispered judgments, the unspoken comparisons. This ring wasn't flashy. It wasn't a performance. It was Chris telling her, you are enough. You are wanted. You are my future. And suddenly, Dakota understood why the ring meant more than words. Because Chris Martin didn't just give her a diamond. He gave her certainty. Epilogue, the love story they never thought they'd get. Weeks later, when the news inevitably leaked, as Hollywood news always does, fans screamed, tabloids exploded, and social media erupted. But Chris and Dakota weren't bothered. They were drinking coffee barefoot in the kitchen, laughing about something unimportant, wearing the ease of two people who knew they had finally found their home. Chris looked at her ring again. I still think it's too small, he teased. Dakota rolled her eyes. Oh please, it's perfect. No, Chris murmured, slipping his arms around her waist. You are perfect. Dakota blushed, something she rarely did. And as he kissed her, slow, warm, and full of promise, she whispered against his lips. Chris, thank you for choosing me. He smiled. I didn't choose you, he said softly. My heart did. And with that, the world outside vanished. Because the diamond ring said it all.